like Mr. P.K. Mittal joins the platform to share right speaker with immense knowledge. And the fact that you'd find him during these testing times coming on the virtual platforms to give the insights of a topic. Prior to that, he was quite visible on the various webinars. The fact that he's an advocate, company secretary, and a past Central Council member of the Institute of Chartered Company Secretaries of India and chief advisor gives another flip and another feeling to the fact that a speaker is not only known for his knowledge, but is also immensely popular amongst his fellow colleagues. Without taking much time amongst us, I will ask Gagan Kohli, a good friend of mine, who also practices on the GST side, to introduce Mr. A.K. Mittal to the audience and as to on what perspectives of the GST he would be giving the insights, because as the topic itself suggests, GST and overview. For a common man, in a lighter vein, it was always said GST meant that it is gupshup time or gupshup with tea. But the another flip side was it was said that the GST is one of the most complicated thing to be understood, not only by a common man, but professional as well. But in the lighter vein, it was always said that since it is complicated, it's good for the professionals. Without taking much time and nitty-gritties about that, I would request Mr. Gagan to take over the stage and introduce Mr. Mittal and take the things forward.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks, Vikas, for giving me an honor to introduce Mr. P.K. Mittal, an advocate who is our today's guest speaker on the topic GST and overview. Mr. Mittal has his background in BCom, LLB from Delhi University, and is fellow company secretary of ICSI. He has been Central Council member of the Institute of Company Secretaries of India. Mr. Mittal is presently convener, core group of GST of Indian Institute of Company Secretaries. Mr. Mittal has also given lot of lectures in different parts of the country on indirect tax, company law, and IBC. Now I welcome Mr. P.K. Mittal to deliver lecture on today's topic, GST and overview. Mr. Mittal, looking forward to hear from you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
मीटिंग स्क्रीन शेयरिंग डिसेबल करेंगे
Screen sharing.
I'm just allowing, Johnny. And friends, Mr. Mittal has been kind enough to share his PPT. We will be sharing on the group of Beyond Law CLC, the WhatsApp groups. It's allowed, sir.
At the outset, I must convey my sincere gratefulness to the Gaganji, advocate, Vikas Chatterjee, advocate, and also the esteemed organization Beyond Law CLC. And above all, I convey my greetings, regards to all the learned participants belong to the different profession for this webinar on GST overview. I'll be making my submission on different topics of the GST, and I'll request all the learned participants to kindly keep their questions in the mind. And after webinar is over, or after my presentation is over, we can take up the questions, and I like to answer those questions. Before we deal with the various topics, first of all, let us understand what exactly is meant by goods or services. But before that, it is necessary to understand the point of taxation. What exactly is meant by supply? Because the GST is payable only when there is a supply of goods or services. Section 7 of the CGST Act talks of all forms of supply of goods or services or both for consideration and in the course or furtherance of a business. So for a taxability under the GST, there are three preconditions. One, there has got to be supply of goods or services. Number two, for consideration. And number three, in the course or furtherance of a business. The word in the course or furtherance of a business is extremely wide. Anything, any activity connected with the business, either directly or indirectly or even remotely, will be held to be in the course or furtherance of a business. And anyone dealing with this branch of law would always like his activity to be covered under this, because only then the tax which you have paid when you have bought the goods or services in turn for the supply as such or in a different form, then you will be entitled to have the benefit of input tax credit. So all the three conditions are cumulative conditions. These conditions have got to be satisfied, only then there shall be supply. For example, second condition is for consideration. If, for example, if there is a latent chartered accountant who is rendering his services to his friend, say for example, the auditing of books of account. But since he's a very dear friend of him, he doesn't charge any amount. The question is, will that be treated as supply? The answer is no. There has got to be a consideration also. So repeating once again, all forms of supply of goods or services. When we talk of supply of goods, it means there has got to be a transfer of title to the goods. If there is no transfer of title to the goods, then it will not be supply of goods. It may be supply of services, and let me demonstrate. For example, if there is a person who is dealing in supply of generator, and there is also another person who deals in supply of generator. Now B asks A that you please provide a generator to me for a week. A agrees to provide a generator to B, but there is no transfer of title. So it will be called a supply of services for a week on rent. So it will be supply of services. But if B asks the A that I want to buy your generator at a particular cost, and A raises his invoice and charges, for example, 10 lakhs for the generator, and B pays 10 lakhs, then there is a transfer of title. So it will be called supply of goods. But when there is no title, when no title passes and the goods are given by A to B for a certain duration on payment of rent, fee or charges, then it will be supply of services. So therefore, whenever we talk of supply of goods, we must understand there has got to be a transfer of title. If there is no transfer of title, there can be no supply of goods. So three conditions. Number one, supply of goods or services for consideration in the course or furtherance of a business. Now, but there are certain exceptions, Schedule A and Schedule 3. Schedule A speaks of 4 clauses, and if the supply of goods falls in any of the 4 clauses, even without consideration, then still it will be supply of goods. I will not deal with each of those clauses because time is very short. So one can always read which are those 4 clauses. And similarly, there is a Schedule 3. Schedule 3 lists down the various clauses which specify various activities which are neither supply of goods nor services. These are extremely important for anyone or any student of GST or anyone who has any interest in this branch of law. Which are those clauses? Clause 1. Clause 1 says services by an employee to the employer in the course or relation to employment. So it means when there is a relationship of employer and employee, and salary, allowances, perks, benefits are given by the employer to the employee, then no GST is payable. Then 2, services by court or tribunal established under any law. So when we pay any court fees to court or tribunal established under any law, for example, sale tax tribunal, excise tribunal, the central administrative tribunal, like this, whenever we are paying any court fees or any amount, no GST is payable. Third, function performed by legislature, duty performed by a person holding constitutional post, duty performed by a person in a body established by a central government, a state government, local authority, services of funeral, other things. And 5 is extremely important, which all professional must know. Whenever there is a sale of land, then no GST is payable, because sale is immovable property, and all immovable property are outside the purview of GST. When I say all immovable property, it will be number 1, land and the flats, or it may be shop, it may be any other premises which could be taken on which could be taken from a real estate developer, but when it is ready for occupation, such a compliance certificate has been given or possession has been given. Then if you buy thereafter, when the compliance certificate is there, no GST is payable. Now today, if anyone go to a developer and say, I want to buy a built-up shop or built-up office or built-up showroom, and the seller says, I'll give you at 50 lakhs plus 18% GST, he is befooling you. No GST is payable on a constructed property whose possession has been given or compliance certificate has been given. So it must be borne in mind. And whenever you buy a land, even in transaction of land, there is no question of payment of GST. So this you must keep in the mind. Then actionable claim other than lottery abetting, these are also outside the purview of the GST. 7 is supply of goods from a place in the knock. This is little tricky, so I'll not deal with. I'll proceed further. Now, second, Schedule 2. Now, Schedule 2 attached to the CGST, it defines various activity which are in the nature of service or a supply of goods. And why I have written clause 5 to be unusual to say that there is a rendering of service. And I would like to explain by way of a simple example, more in the nature of a joke, I'll say, agreeing to obligation to refrain from an act, tolerate an act. Now, I would like to explain by simple. For example, there is a marriage ceremony. Marriage ceremony is over. The boys from the girl side, boys from the girls from the girl side, all are sitting there. And there is a competition that each one of has to sing a song. Now, the question is, somebody has a very good voice and a person makes a request to him that since you have an excellent voice, you have a lovely voice, why don't you sing a song? He said, very fine. I'll sing a song, but I'll charge money. If his aggregate turnover is more than the taxable turnover, and if some amount is paid to him for the purpose of singing a song, then in that event, GST is payable by that person. Now, similarly, out of joke, another person whose voice is absolutely hopeless, and he says, I would also like to sing a song, and he insists upon singing a song. Now people say, yeah, don't sing a song. He said, very fine. If you want that I should not sing a song, then you pay something to me also. And in consideration of him not singing a song, if some amount is paid, that will also be taxable, because his activity of not singing a song will fall here, agreeing to obligation to refrain from an act. He is refraining from an act. So therefore, even that activity, even that, although there is no activity from his side, he is not doing anything. He said, since you want me not to sing, I'll not sing, but you pay something. So if amount is paid to him, then that amount is also liable to an act, or tolerate an act or situation. Which are those things? For example, the government has given a contract to a contractor to construct a housing complex for a housing board. The period is about that 2 years, and the cost is about 100 crore. And there is a provision for payment of liquidated damages in case the construction is prolonged beyond a period of 2 years. The question then arises is that this, admittedly, the delay has taken place. Instead of 2 years, the contractor has taken 2 years and 6 months. So for a period of 6 months, the liquidated damage is payable by the contractor to the principal, that is the government department or a housing board. The question is whether GST is payable on liquidated damages or not. The answer is yes, because this will fall in clause 5E at 5E of Schedule 2 attached to the CGST Act. So therefore, whenever any penalty is imposed, whenever any liquidated damages is imposed, whenever any kind of a fine is imposed, in all those cases, GST would be levied by virtue of, since all these situations fall in clause 5E of Schedule 2 attached to the CGST Act, and therefore GST will be payable at the rate of 18%. Now, the question arises, what exactly is meant by goods? Because we have seen section 7. Section 7 says supply of goods or services. Now, naturally, we'll have to understand what exactly is the meaning of the word goods. Now, to find out the meaning of the word goods, we'll have to fall back upon the definition of definition as given in section 2, subsection 52 of CGST Act. It says every kind of a movable property except money, securities, money and securities. So whenever there is a exchange of money, no GST is payable. Whenever there is a sale of security, for example, I hold certain shares, I sell to Mr. Gagan, I sell to Mr. Vikas these shares, then no GST is payable. For example, PK Mittal is a taxable person, but in case I sell my car to Mr. Vikas, or in turn I purchase a car from Mr. Vikas and Mr. Vikas is a taxable person, then in that event, on the sale of car by Mr. Vikas or by Mr. Gagan to PK Mittal, GST would be payable. But there are two exceptions, money and security. Security means as defined under the Companies Act, as defined under the Securities Contract Regulation Act. Security means share, both equity, both then preference share and debentures. or any other instrument issued by the company from time to time. This will all be called securities. And whenever there is an issue of shares, issue of debentures, issue of preference share, issue of equity share, issue of any other instrument by the company, no GST will be payable, because the security does not fall within the definition of goods. And as I was saying, movable property is again not defined. Then we'll have to go back to the definition as given in the Transfer of Property Act, or under General Clauses Act, Section 3, subsection 26 of the General Clauses Act, which says, in fact, definition of the immovable property is that things permanently attached or fastened to the earth like this. Then Section 2, subsection 102 defines what is service. Now, service is very strange definition is given. Service means anything other than goods, money, or security. So, something which does not fall in the goods will fall in service. So now in today's context, whenever something doesn't fall in goods, then it will be service. Now I give one example. A person is having certain IPR, trademark, patent, copyright. Now if he sell it, then it will be a goods, and the GST will be payable on those IPR at the rate of 18%. But if the very same person does not sell, he says, okay, these are my copyright, these are my patent, and I will allow you to use my trademark for a period of 20 years. And on a yearly basis, you pay this amount. So it is a supply of services. And then the GST will be payable as a supply of services because there is no transfer of title in the IPR. Now, as per Section 9 CGST, every person is liable to pay CGST, SGST, except where the tax is payable on reverse charge basis. It is settled law that a taxable person, when he is selling goods, he will raise the taxable invoice. In the taxable invoice, he will give the details of the goods or services which are being sold, and will also give the details of tax payable. And it is the liability of the provider of the goods or services to pay tax to the government. But there are certain exceptions. Where the tax is not payable by the provider of goods or services, but these are paid by the recipient of such goods or services. And the live example is the services rendered by an advocate or by a senior advocate to his client. In these two cases, the tax is payable by the body corporate, and it is the responsibility of the company or a body corporate to pay tax to the government. And it is not necessary. Then when the advocate or senior advocate is raising a bill, he should charge the GST on that. It is absolutely not required. It is the obligation fastened by the law upon the recipient of service to pay GST to the government on RCM basis, on reverse charge basis. And there are certain goods on which RCM is paid. GST is paid on RCM basis, and these are supply of goods, certain agriculture produce, transporter, advocate, arbitral tribunal, because for example, in the Indian Council of Arbitration, they are providing certain services to the parties for arranging the arbitration, and whatever amount is being paid, then it is liable to GST. Supply receipt from unregistered person. Now, in case a taxable person is receiving the goods or services from unregistered person, then it is his obligation, that is obligation of the recipient to raise an invoice upon himself and charge GST and pay GST. Supply of sponsorship services supplied by the government, supply by way of transfer of development rights. This pertains especially to the real estate developers, because many times the real estate developer buy a development right from the agriculturist or from a person who is owning a land, and in that event the GST is payable by the developer. For example, the DLF has approached a person who is having land, and the person is keen, says, sir, I don't have a funds. You are DLF, you are a huge organization. Please develop a property or develop a housing complex or develop a shopping complex and give me some portion out of the built up area as my share. So the person who is holding a land rights is allowing DLF to purchase, to build the build complex, and certain portion are being given by the developer to that landowner, then GST will be payable by the DLF and not by the agriculturist or by the person who is having ownership of a land. Now, very important point, fees payable to director. We see many times, now we must understand there are two types of directors. One is a whole-time director. Whole-time director can be managing director. It could be a whole-time director. It could be executive director. But all the persons falling under all the three categories, they are in whole-time employment of the company. In case they are in whole-time employment of the company, as per clause 1 of schedule 3, there is a relationship of employer and employee. Therefore, any amount paid by the company to the whole-time director, maybe designation may be managing director, designation may be your executive director, designation may be your the whole-time director, director marketing, director HR, director factory operation, director finance, like this. So no GST is payable whenever there is a relationship of employer and employee. But however, there are certain other categories of director also who simply come when there is a board meeting. For example, I am also director in a couple of companies. What I do is, whenever there is a board meeting, I go there, attend a board meeting and come back. Now, of course, during this corona period, we are not physically attending the board meeting. We are attending the board meeting through this video conferencing. So, and whenever we attend a board meeting, the company pays sitting fee of say 20,000, maybe 50,000, maybe 25,000, whatever the sitting fee is being paid. Now, if whatever sitting fee is paid by the company to the director, GST is payable on reverse charge basis by the company. Now, certain illustrative examples for the benefit of the learned audience. Services supplied by establishment in India to its own establishment outside India is exempt from payment of tax if the supply is outside. It is more in the nature of export of services. It is a settled law in pre-GST regime and now in post-GST regime also, that whenever there is export of goods or services, no tax is payable, because export is without liability of any tax, duty or cess. Second, if a foreign entity, like for many MNC, multinational corporation, if a foreign entity is maintaining in India a license office only for the purpose of a license without supply of either goods or services, and does not have a significant commitment power reimbursement of salary, wages, and reimbursement of expense does not entail payment of GST. In simple word, if it is merely liaison office and is not engaged in supply of services or engaged in supply of goods, and the whatever amount is remitted by the foreign office to the Indian liaison office, no GST is payable in such cases. Now, donation, grants, and subsidy received by charitable institution received from various sources for conducting training courses is not a consideration. Received for coaching services provided are not subject to GST. In other word, any trust or any society engage or dealing in the providing the social service or a charitable service, and if they are receiving donation or grants or subsidy, then all these donation and grant and subsidy are outside the purview of GST. Now the next is very important, late fee. Now very often we pay late fee to the different government department, to even the private body also. We pay liquidated damages. I gave the example of liquidated damages in case where the government is engaged a contractor and there is a delay in completing the construction and liquidated damages is charged. Then penalty. In some time, you were to do a certain act by certain time, and there is a delay or neglect or failure on the part of the doer, and penalty is imposed. Next, penal interest. Let us keep in the mind, normal interest is outside the purview of GST. For example, if I go to the Punjab National Bank and take education loan and I pay the interest, I pay the principal sum, no GST is payable. But if there is a default on the part of a loanee, in repayment, in payment of interest, and the bank charges a penal interest. Whenever there is a penal interest is charged by the banks or a financial institution or by NBFC, then such penal interest, penalty or penal rate is liable to payment of GST. We must understand this distinction. Let me repeat once again. It is only the penal interest which is subject to GST. Normal interest is outside the purview of GST. So late fee, liquidated damages, penalty or penal interest, GST is payable. However, no GST is payable on normal interest payable on the loan, financial accommodation or borrowings. Penal interest is liable to GST as per Advanced Ruling Authority of Maharashtra in the case of Bajaj Finance Limited 2018-99 taxman.com 236. So repeating once again, whenever late fee is paid, penalty is paid, damages are paid, liquid damages are paid, late fee is paid, or any amount which is in nature of penal, then GST shall be payable. But when the amount is not in the nature of penal interest, then no GST would be payable in that case. Medical insurance. Now, according to the Advanced Ruling Authority of Maharashtra, in the case of POSCO, recovery, now is a very interesting case has come in. I have already explained that clause 1 of Schedule 3. Schedule 3, as I have submitted to you, deals with a situation or deals with activity which are neither supply of goods or services, and therefore no GST is payable. And these services rendered by the employee to the employer are outside the purview of GST. Now, in a case where the employee makes a request to the company that when you are taking insurance cover for me, kindly also take insurance cover for my parents, and you deduct whatever insurance premium you have paid to the insurance company, please deduct from my salary. The question has arisen whether the amount which the employer has deducted from the salary of employee is subject to GST. The answer is no, because it does not satisfy the condition number 2 of section 7. For anything which is done by one person for another has got to be with consideration, only then it is liable to GST. So the advanced ruling authority says when the employer is only recovering the insurance premium, no GST is payable. But in case the employer recovers something toward the service charges by way of rendering this service, then whatever the service charges has been claimed by the employer from the employee, this will be subject to GST. Otherwise, if it is purely the amount which the employer has paid to the insurance company, is not subject to GST. Recovery of insurance premium, recovery of premium amount from employee and subsequent deposit of the insurance company cannot be treated as supply of service in the course or furtherance of business. The answer is simple. Whatever amount the company has paid to the insurance company, same amount is recovered. So then the condition number 2 of section 7 is not being satisfied. No consideration is being paid by the employee to the employer, and therefore no GST will be paid. Whatever amount has been deducted, the same amount has been paid to the insurance company, and therefore it will not be subject to GST. Now, food services in the canteen, this is a very debatable issue. Very, very debatable issue that we see there are establishment, there are factory which have the canteen and the free tea, free lunch, free snacks are being provided to the workers, to the officer, to the staff. The question is this service is subject to GST or not? There is an advanced ruling authority given in the case of Caltex Polymer, where they say it is a supply and therefore taxable. However, we must keep in the mind, in the pre-GST regime and even the post-GST regime, any statutory obligation being fulfilled by the employer that is not taxable. Meaning thereby we all know under the Factories Act, if the factory is having more than 250 workers, then it is mandatory on the part of factory to maintain a canteen. And if the company is fulfilling its mandatory obligation of having a canteen at their factory, and in fulfillment of that mandatory obligation is providing tea, snacks, food item, lunch or dinner without charging anything from the employees, then it is outside the purview of GST. However, if some amount, for example, the cost of lunch is say about 100 rupees or 80 rupees, but out of 80 rupees, which is costing to the company, if the company is recovering, say 20 rupees, then GST will become payable on rupees 20 and not rupees 70 or 80 rupees. There is a landmark judgment of the Andhra Pradesh High Court in the case of Bhima's Hotel, where the Honorable High Court has held that if canteen services is a part of package agreed with the employee, Section 2RR of the ID Act define wages to mean all remuneration capable of being expressed in terms of money, which would, if the terms of employment expressed or implied were fulfilled, be payable to the workman. So what the Honorable High Court says, if you are providing the canteen services, it is in fact is an indirect wages. Is an indirect wages. When it is indirect wages, no GST is payable. This is what the Honorable Division Bench of Andhra Pradesh High Court has held in the case of Bhima's Hotel. Now, recovery of salary already paid. Now, for some reason, if somebody has taken excess leave and the salary is recovered, then in that event, the question is that liable to GST? The answer is no. This transaction does not fall under the definition of supply and hence not liable to GST. It is just recovery of whatever amount has been paid by the employer to the employee, and therefore it is merely a breach of contract on the part of the workman or employee or an officer. Whether, now very interesting point, whether a salary paid to a partner by a partnership firm is subject to GST, the answer is no, because this clearly falls in clause 1 of Schedule 3 attached to CGST Act. As I submitted earlier, Schedule 3 speaks of activity which are neither supply of goods or services. If kindly find out if the activity or activity is neither supply of goods nor supply of if the activity is not falling in Schedule 3. I'm so sorry. If the activity is falling in Schedule 3, then it is neither supply of goods nor services, and therefore no GST will be payable. So therefore, if a partnership firm pays a salary to a partner, then it is outside the purview of GST. Number 2, the company has provided cars, laptop, air conditioner, mobile to officers of the rank of GM and above. No GST is payable. It is not a supply of goods. Because kindly appreciate, if somebody has been appointed as a vice president or general manager or say executive director, he is provided a car, he is provided a mobile phone, he is provided a laptop, he is provided other movable assets for discharge of duty by such officer. And we'll have to keep in the mind there is no transfer of title in such cases. As I have submitted earlier, the GST is payable only when there is a transfer of title in goods, only then GST is payable. But here the company is providing all those movable items to the officer in order to enable them to discharge their duty and responsibility, and therefore no GST will be payable. Another interesting point is stipend paid to a trainee or apprentice. Though strictly speaking, they are not employees of the company, and therefore, in my view, the GST should be payable, but the government has clarified that whatever fee, whatever training apprentice fee, whatever fee is paid to trainee or apprentice is outside the purview of GST. Very interesting point. Transaction in sale and purchase of security is outside the purview of GST. However, GST is payable on brokerage charged by the broker. Kindly appreciate, when there is a broker and the broker raises an invoice, in that invoice of the value of security. For example, if you are buying a share from a broker, say Angel Broking Limited, you place the order for purchase of 1,000 shares of the TCS, and the value of the share is 3,000 per share, and you have ordered for purchase of 1,000 share. Then in the invoice raised by the Angel Broking Limited, he will give the value of 1,000 shares of TCS. He will give the value, and then he will charge brokerage. If, for example, his brokerage works out to be, say, 1,000 rupees, then he is required to charge a GST only on brokerage and not on the value of shares, that is value of 1,000 shares of the TCS. That we must clear in the mind. So share broker is liable to pay the GST only on brokerage charged by him, and not on the value of shares, which are subject matter of purchase or sale of shares on a particular day. Number 2, recovery of any amount towards health, gym, crutch facility, car parking facility, T-shirt, diary, books, journal, subscription, group medical, personal accident insurance taken for our employees. So if all these facilities, if these are given by the employer to the employee, then these are not subject to GST. In fact, there is a clarification issued by the CBIC on 10th of July 2017, which clearly says that if services are provided free of charge to all the employees by the employer, then the same will not be subject to GST, provided appropriate GST was paid when procured by the employer. However, if any amount is recovered, then it shall be deemed to be provision of services and GST. For example, the company is charging, say, from all officers amount of rupees 50, a token amount of 50 as a car parking facility. The question is, will GST is payable? The answer is yes. Similarly, for crèche facility, there are female employees who bring their small child, which are taken care of in the crèche, and the company is charging, say, 500 rupees per month towards crèche facility. Then the amount of rupees 500 which is charged, then it will be subject to GST. But if no amount is charged for providing any of these facility, then no GST is payable. Now, another interesting point is sale of used assets like laptop, desktop to the employee. The answer is yes, because the company is a taxable person, and whenever there is a sale of laptop and desktop to the employee, there is a transfer of title in the goods. When there is a three conditions of Section 7 are fulfilled: sale of movable property, then consideration is there. Third, in the course or furtherance of a business. So you may wonder as to whether how is sale of laptop will be in the course or furtherance of a business. But company is engaged in a business. It is immaterial in the lifetime of a company. Even if one transaction takes place, and that transaction is not in the ordinary course of business, yet GST will be paid. For example, the company is selling old cars in 10 years. Earlier, they were lying in the parking area, they were sold. The company is not engaged in the business of sale purchase of cars, but they are assets, they are sold, transfer of title is there, consideration is there, and it is said to be in the course or furtherance of a business, and therefore tax is payable. Now, next question is bonus given to employees like Diwali bonus, festive offer. As per a press release issued by CBIC on 10th of July 2017, gift up to value of rupees 50,000 per year by an employer to his employee are outside the ambit of GST. You must have seen in Gujarat, there are many industries or many establishments who are giving to their employees every year, say, car of the value of 6 lakhs. Or there are rich diamond dealer who have been giving, say, 2-room flat to the employee costing about 15 lakhs or 20 lakhs to its worker or to the staff. The question is are they liable to GST? The answer is, if the gift of a value of 50,000 or more, to 50,000 is a limit which is to be calculated in relation to single employee. So if a single employee is given a gift of more than 50,000 in a year, then then the GST will be payable. But if the value of the gift is less than 50,000 per employee, then in that event, no GST will be payable. However, the gift of value of more than 50,000 made without consideration are subject to GST when made in the course or furtherance of a business. So on. Now, very interesting point. The CBIC has clarified gift of the value. The word is gift of the value of 50,000. Now, the question arises, if the employer gives cash reward, in my view, it will not fall in the limit of 50,000, because here it talks of gift of a value of equivalent to 50,000 or more, then liable to GST. But if the company is giving cash itself, maybe more than 50,000, in my view, no GST will be payable in such case, because what is the mischievous gift of the value of 50,000 or more. Housing. GST will not be applicable if free housing for the employees is mentioned in the terms of contract between the employer and employee and is a part of cost to the company. It may be seen as per clause 1 attached to schedule 3 to the CGST Act. Services rendered by the employee to the employer outside the purview of GST, and therefore we have seen the many industry provide in the township the residential accommodation to the workers, to the officers and employees of the company free of charge, and therefore it will not be subject to any GST, but this is as a part of cost to the company. Obviously the cost is recovered by the company from the employer, and therefore not recovered as such, but is a cost to the company for services rendered by the employer to the employer. So therefore it is outside the purview of, provided again we have to keep in the mind any amount paid of any nature whatsoever by the employer to the employee is outside the purview of GST, provided it is in terms of the condition of letter of appointment, or in terms of a standing order, or in terms of any kind of a office order which are issued by the company from time to time. It is a part of the terms of employment, and therefore no GST shall be payable in all these cases. Cab service. Many times the company provide pick and drop. It is again a free, therefore no GST will be payable. Now vehicles, car for official and personal use are often given to senior staff. The employer will have no GST liability in this case. It is not considered a supply under the new tax regime. Car leased by the company from a dealer and given to the employee will also be exempt from GST. Now, for example, the company has given free. The company now, what most of the company does, they take car on rent from the rental company and give it to the employee for their use. Company doesn't charge any amount from the employees. No GST is payable. But if a rental company is giving a car on rent to the company, and that rental company will raise a taxable invoice, in that he will charge GST, and the company is entitled to take the benefit of input tax credit. On that, yes, tax will be payable by the rental company when they provide cars to the company. But for the activity of company providing the facility of that car to its employee, no GST will be payable. Sale of used cars, already I have dealt with. Health checkup. Corporates often provide annual health checkup facility to employees, but this will not have any GST liability since there is no underlying supply. You will have to see three conditions. One, supply of goods or services, and consideration. Consideration is missing here. Third, there has to be in the course or furtherance of a business, since the employer as a welfare measure is providing the facility of annual health checkup to the employee, and therefore for providing such facility by the employer to the employee, no GST shall be payable. Stock exchange charges. Now fees paid toward approval of ESOP, employee stock option scheme. You know, all companies pay the fee or charges to the stock exchange for various services rendered by them to the company. And when the stock exchange, that is the Bombay Stock Exchange or the National Stock Exchange, they raise an invoice, they charge GST. The question then arises is, when the GST is charged by the National Stock Exchange or by the Bombay Stock Exchange, and the company pays that amount, the question then arises is the company entitled to take the benefit of input tax credit or not? The answer is yes, the company can take the benefit of input tax credit. Now the training charges. There is a institution who is engaged in providing training services to the employees of corporate, and the company has engaged that institution to provide training to its employees and to the workers and to the officers. The question is, can the company take the benefit of ITC? The answer is yes. The company is entitled to take the benefit of ITC, and I must submit that the corporate should strive to have the maximum amount of input tax credit. Because let me demonstrate by a simple example, that during the course of a day, assuming 10 lakhs of GST is payable a day. Of course, GST is payable within 20 days after the expiry of the month in question. But on a 20th day, suppose 10 lakh GST is payable. There are two ways of paying GST. One, I take out the money from my bank balance or from my cash balance and pay to the government. Second would be, whenever I have purchased the inputs or input services, and whatever tax I have paid on purchase of input or purchase of input services, in law, I am entitled to, under section 16 of CGST Act, I am entitled to take the credit of tax paid on purchase of input or purchase of service. So if during a month, if I have paid, say, a tax of rupees 5 lakh, and I have to pay tax of rupees 10 lakhs on 20th of the next month. One, if I don't take ITC, then from my cash account, I have to pay 20 lakhs as the tax. But if I avail the ITC, then I have to pay only the balance amount from my bank account or from my cash account. So therefore, the corporate must strive to take the maximum amount of ITC so that there is a less and less outflow of the money from their bank account or from their cash account. And for trainings, if tax is paid for providing training services, the question has arisen in these three cases whether the company can take the benefit of ITC or not. There are three judgments: CC versus Deloitte Tax Services, CC versus Suprajit Automobile, then the Wipro Limited. In all these cases, there are two cases is that of a High Court. One case is of the Delhi High Court, and another two cases of a tribunal. And all three cases, the High Court and the tribunal have held the ITC Senmet credit or ITC can be taken in respect of the training facility which the company has taken from an outside person, and the outside person has charged a tax over that. Catering services, the food and catering services for a staff and plant operator, which is a statutory requirement as per the Factories Act. Now, for example, you have engaged, for running a canteen, you have engaged a food supplier. And when he supplies the food, he is charged GST. The question is, whatever the tax he has charged from you, can you take the benefit of ITC? The answer is yes. And these are the three judgments. One is Stangen Toshio of Karnataka High Court. Second is Jubilant Biosys of the tribunal. And third is Reliance Industries, again of a tribunal. In all these cases, the High Court and the tribunal have held that the company can take the benefit of the Senmet or input tax credit in respect of the tax paid on the invoices raised by the canteen or a canteen supplier or by the food supplier. Now, very interesting point. In the case of Carrier Air Conditioning and Refrigeration Limited, the question has arisen that the company has taken an insurance cover for the employees who are frequently visiting outside the place of posting for the purpose of discharging their duties, maybe sales, maybe finance, maybe for factory operations. If they keep on traveling from different places and the company takes insurance cover. Obviously, when the company takes insurance cover from insurance company, the insurance company charge a tax on that invoice which they raise. The question is, can the company take the benefit of ITC? The answer is yes. These are the two judgments of the tribunal to this effect. Group insurance policy is very interesting point. We have seen during the this corona period also, the question has arisen when the establishment or when the any business or trade or industry, if they are taking insurance cover for protecting their employee, for protecting their workmen, for protecting their employee or protecting their officer, the question has arisen whether the tax which the employer has paid to the insurance company, can they take ITC or not? This is a landmark judgment of Karnataka High Court in the case of Stringent Osho, where the High Court have held, the is a landmark judgment for many purposes, where the High Court have held that if a company performs or observes or maintain this or comply with the statutory obligations under any provision of law, then whatever tax has been paid for complying that provision of law, the company is entitled to take the benefit of input tax credit. As we all know, Section 38 of ESI Act clearly says that in case of any establishment, and let me submit that even the office of an advocate, office of a chartered accountant, office of a company secretary, office of any professional where more than 10 employees are appointed on full-time basis, the company is under obligation to take an insurance cover as per Section 38 of ESI Act. And therefore, any tax paid by the employer is entitled to take the benefit of ITC for the purpose of paying a tax on output supply. This group medical policy and group insurance health policy is otherwise mandatory by virtue of section so and so is permissible. Then similarly, we have seen that during the corona period, the Ministry of Home Affairs have issued various office order under the Disaster Management Act, and also under some there is one other provision of law under that also. So the government have also clarified that if insurance cover has been taken in compliance with the provisions of the office order issued by the Ministry of Home Affairs, the company would be entitled to have the benefit of ITC. A very interesting point. As we all know, under Section 134, probably, if I'm not mistaken, the company is 135 of the Companies Act. There are certain companies who are under obligation to comply with the mandatory requirement of corporate social responsibility. And if you are paying some amount to an institution and that institution is raising a bill and is charging a tax, the question has arisen whether tax so paid by you to that institution who have rendered CSR facility, can you take the benefit of ITC or not? The answer is yes. This is a landmark judgment of the Karnataka High Court in the case of Millipore India Limited, Private Limited. And there is also a judgment of Madras High Court in the case of CST versus Rane TRW String Systems. In both the judgment, Madras High Court and the Karnataka High Court have clearly held that the tax so paid for complying the mandatory requirement of CSR, that the corporate social responsibility, the benefit of ITC would be available. Amount is spent on CSR. There is a tribunal judgment also, a very recent judgment of November 2019 in the case of Northern Coalfield Limited, where the Honorable Tribunal has held that the company is fulfilling a statutory obligation as set out under Section 135 of the Companies Act, and therefore the GST so charged by the person who has provided a CSR facility, the company can take the benefit of input tax credit. As I said, every company, every taxable person should strive and make effort to have the maximum amount of ITC, because generally it is 18%. So 18% tax which you are paying on input service or purchase of input, it is available to you for the purpose of payment of tax on your output supply. So therefore, one must strive to have the maximum amount as the sorry. Donation made during COVID period, the government has allowed, the government has clarified, if the donation is given to PM Relief Fund, it is allowed as CSR, and it is allowed, the ITC will be availed by the company. But if it is to the state government, it's not allowable. Now, if I summarize, the company may have paid amount on the following heads: Mediclaim insurance, transportation facility from home to workplace and vice versa, expenditure incurred for sanitation facility, sanitizer, PPE kits, medical facility, spraying of disinfect, stay arrangement, food, and so on. Whatever tax the corporate has paid on any of these items, this will be available to take the benefit as ITC and could be used for the purpose of payment of tax on output supply of goods or services by the company. A very interesting point has arisen after the Advanced Ruling Authority of Rajasthan gave a verdict. It is a totally, I'll say, illegal judgment rendered by the Advanced Ruling Authority of Rajasthan, when the Advanced Ruling Authority of Rajasthan held that the salary paid to the whole-time director is also subject to GST. It is a clearly erroneous, if I use the word absurd, I don't hesitate to use the word absurd. This is a totally absurd order passed by the Advanced Ruling Authority of Rajasthan. Subsequently, the Advanced Ruling Authority of Karnataka, after 1 month, they came out with a ruling that no GST is payable on a salary, allowances, benefit paid to the whole-time director, and ultimately in the month of June, in the month of 10th of June 2020, the board came out with a clarification clearly saying that that a whole-time director, sorry, just a minute. Whole-time director, including managing director, who are employee of the company, salary, allowances, perks, so and so, are not subject to GST. Then, विकास जी कितना टाइम बताइए मेरे पास? Now, very interesting point. The directors who are not employee of the company, remuneration paid to them are clearly outside the purview of Schedule 3. And
sir,
therefore,
what is your expected timeline?
सर मेरे पास तो बहुत माल मसाला है, वो आप मुझे बता दो, मैं उस वक्त स्टॉप कर दूंगा.
No, I am only saying, since we do webinars up till 1.5 hours, but except I don't think there are many questions because you are already explaining in an elucidated manner. Except one question is there. Just check
So
it out.
now I have, I think, about 18 minutes, 17, 18 minutes.
Yes, around 12 minutes, because Gagan will say a vote of thanks myself.
Okay,
I can take that question, one question, so that if anybody wants to post a question, he can do it. This is by Praveen. He says, in case dealer issuing a false bill at time of VAT and now excise department is not penalizing that time for fine / recovery of VAT 2013 bill, and complaint is in 2019,
वो
and now GST is applicable.
वो देखिए वो ये बड़ा सेंसिटिव क्वेश्चन है, इसको प्राइवेटली बता दूंगा मैं, फोरम पे मत बुलवाओ मुझसे आप.
पर्दे में रहने दो.
ठीक बात कहा आपने. So coming back to the point that the directors, the director who are not whole-time employee, and if any fee, commission is paid to them, then the tax is payable by the company on reverse charge basis. So if a director, simply a non-executive director, or for example, I explained PK Mittal, I am also director in many companies. If the company pays to me some amount out of the net profit of the company, or the company paid to me some other amount, then it is a duty. Then all these are subject to a GST on reverse charge basis, and the obligation is upon the company to pay the tax by the company, and it is not the obligation of that director to pay GST to the government. Sitting fee or commission paid to director, I have just now explained. I'll not like to, because there are many more very, very important points on which I would like to harp upon. This is also in relation to the director only. I'll not deal with this, also director only. Now, valuation is very, very important point. Now, section 15 covers valuation. When I talk of valuation, a person or taxable person is supplying either goods or services. The question arises, for example, if there is a wholesale dealer, or there is a called, let me give a live example. For example, Vijaya Sales. In sector 17, Chandigarh, there is a showroom of Vijaya Sales or Sargam. They are selling the consumer durables. The question arises, at what price they should pay the GST? Now, that is covered under section 15 of the CGST Act, which calls of transaction value. What is transaction value? Price actually paid or payable. Parties are not related, and the price is the sole consideration. Consideration would include any amount which the supplier is liable to incur, but incurred by the recipient, such as conveyance expenses, hotel expenses, travel, and so on, so on, so on. Now, I would like to explain by way of one example. Now, or let us say there is a showroom of Reliance. Correct? Or sorry, there is a showroom of LG or Samsung. And around 11 a.m. in the morning, a person comes. He says, I want to buy 10 television. The party quotes 50 rupees. He says, I'm buying 10 television. Give me some discount. He'll say, I will discount of, say, 100 rupees. So he sell at 49,000 rupees for sale of 10 TV. Now, after 1 hour, a person comes. He says, I'll buy 50 TV. Give me a discount of 200 or concession of 200. He gives a very fine, is a discount of 200. He sells at 49,800. After 2 hours, one person comes. He says, I'll buy 200 television, but you have to give me a concession of 300 rupees. Charge me only 49,700. He agrees for 49,700. Now, at the end of the day, one person comes. He says, I'll buy 1,000 television, but you have to charge only 49,500. He says, sir, I'll be selling 1,000 television. It's a good amount. I'll get so much of facility or perks or incentive from LG. He agrees for 49,500. Now section 15 says all these amount starting from 49,900 or 800 to 49,500, each of them is a transaction value. Government cannot say that in a daytime, why you have sold goods on a particular day at a different time at a different rates. So long as government is not able to establish that I have received something over and above the transaction value or the invoice value from the purchaser, the government cannot question this transaction, and the government has to accept it, or the government will have to prove with evidence or some other document to say that they have received some cash from the buyer on each of those purchases. Similarly, example in relation to the supplier of service. For example, a practicing chartered accountant or practicing company secretary firm, AA Professional LLP, is engaged in incorporation of a company and incur the expenses of, number one, he is charging professional fee. Naturally, he has to charge GST. Now, in addition to that, that firm of chartered accountant or a practicing company secretary, he is also claiming certain amount as the amount paid on behalf of his principal. What is that amount? Name approval fee, which he has paid to the ROC. Registration fee, which he has paid to the Ministry of Corporate Affairs. Filing fee payable to MCA, that is Ministry of Corporate Affairs, and the printing of memorandum articles. So all these expenses are incurred by the provider of service purely as an agent to his principal. So the law says no GST shall be payable on any of these amount which have been spent, and the GST shall be payable only on professional fee which is charged by the firm of a chartered accountant or a firm of practicing company secretary. Now, another extended question. Now, for audit, now there is a firm of chartered accountant who is doing audit of 3 companies. And all the 3 companies are similarly situated. Each have a turnover of, say, 500 crore per annum. And from 3 of them, he is charging a different fee as an audit fee. The question is, can the government question is that why you are charging a fee of rupees 5 lakh from A, why you are charging a fee of rupees 4,50,000 from B, and why you are charging a fee of only 4 lakh from a firm known as C. Again, the same principle will apply when there is a sale of goods, that a professional is entitled to sell his services at whatever rate he feels is a just and proper in his wisdom, and the government has no business to tell him that why you are not selling at rupees 5 lakh, which you have charged from the firm A. So this liquid damages I have already covered. I will not like to repeat once again. This also I have covered. Now, very interesting point which I thought I must share. Now, unfortunately, section 17(5)(b) of the your CGST Act says that whatever tax you have paid for food, beverages, and outdoor catering, that will not be available as the ITC. I don't know why the government has disallowed the benefit of ITC on buying food, beverages, and outdoor catering. So if a corporate is spending an amount on a dinner, for providing a dinner facility to the on the eve of dealer meet or a factory meet, then no ITC can be taken in respect of such. There could be a via media that a company engage event management firm, and even a management firm should engage or should deal with all other service provider. For example, it could be a travel agent who will buy the air tickets, who will provide the cars. That event management will also look for, or look for the your hotel, maybe a banquet hall or some other place. That event management will also look for the food supplier. Event management will also engage a party who will provide the gift item, and let the event management raises the one bill and charge GST. In my view, the government cannot disallow the ITC on the bill raised by the event management firm. Now, as per section 16, the benefit of input tax credit can be used when the company is providing the taxable goods or taxable output service, and these are and the input and input services are used or intended to be used in the course or furtherance of a business. Now, for the purpose of availing the ITC, there are 4 basic conditions. It should be possession of invoice, debit note, that is tax paying document, good bill of entry. You must have received the goods or services. Tax has actually been paid by the supplier, and you have filed return under section 39. So in case you want to avail the benefit of ITC, you must satisfy 4 conditions. You must be having the possession of invoice with you. You must have received the goods or services. Third, the supplier has paid tax to the government, and you have filed a return under section 39 with the government. In case all the 4 conditions have been satisfied, then you are entitled to have the benefit of ITC. The very important point is, a very interesting question arises. For example, I have taken an insurance cover not for 1 year, but for 3 years. And I have taken a GST on the insurance charges for which bill has been raised by insurance company. It is for 3 years. The question is, can I take the benefit of entire GST which I have paid to the insurance right now? The answer is yes. There is no dispute. You can, although it is for a period of 3 years. Government cannot say, no, charge proportionally 33% this year, 33% next year, 30% third year. No. If I have paid the amount as a tax to the supplier of services, and he in turn also pays to the tax, he is entitled to take the benefit of ITC. In respect of professionals, maybe chartered accountant, maybe company secretary, tax paid on purchase of AC, fridge, photocopy machine, computers, laptop, computer table, chairs, mobile phones, landline phones, motorcycle, cycle, water purifier, dispenser, coffee vending machine, geyser, all office equipment, furniture, fixture, carpet, furnishing material, office material, stationery, tax paid on hire purchase of renting of the above, and all expenses incurred are in the course of furtherance of a business. Obviously, when you have AC in the office, it is for having a good atmosphere. You have a fridge so that you can serve the in the summer. You can fridge. You can offer the cold drinks to your client, to your the visitors, and like this. So everything, all the expenses which you are incurring in the course or furtherance of a business. However, the government has not allowed the ITC on the motor vehicle which has a carrying capacity less than 13%. So if the chartered accountant or a practicing company secretary is buying a vehicle or a car and is paying a tax on that, he is not entitled to have the benefit of ITC. I'm not, every time I'm not naming the learned advocates, because learned advocates do not pay tax. They don't pay GST. The GST is paid by the corporate. So therefore, in case advocate is not paying a tax, there is no question of taking the benefit of ITC in respect of all these items, because they are not paying a tax. So when they are not paying a tax, there is no question of taking the benefit of ITC on any of these items. Time for utilizing ITC. Law only says that invoice should not be more than 1 year old. But once you have taken the credit of input tax credit, law says there is no time limit. There is no time limit within which you have to actually utilize it. Taking credit is one thing, utilizing another thing. So the law only says that you must take the credit. Utilization can be after 1 year, maybe 5 years, maybe 10 years, maybe 20 years also. So with this, friend, my presentation is over, and the time allotted to me was 1 hour and 30 minutes. That is also over. There are many more things which in future, whenever I'm given another opportunity, I'll share with you. Once again, I convey my sincere thanks, regard to both Vikas ji, Vikas Chatra Saab, Gagan ji, for giving me an opportunity of sharing the little knowledge I have at my command on this very important branch of tax. Thank you once again, and thank you to the learned audience as well. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. They say that any speaker who can speak concisely, precisely, and incisely is one of the best speakers. And the way you presented a complicated subject, which or the first brush one feels, shows your command over the subject. I can only say, then when I contacted Gagan, that you should give us a resource person who can explain. He says that my name is Gagan, but under the sky, if you can ask somebody to explain better than this thing, that could be only Mr. P.K. Mittal. So I immediately requested Mr. Gagan that you may be Gagan, but under the sky, we want someone who can actually explain GST in a right perspective. And definitely the way, actually, I also felt that there was a lot of not exactly hue and cry, but there was always a saying that GST is very complicated to be understood. But the way you presented with the PPTs and the way you presented the things, it looked very simplistic. I thought that sometimes there is too much hype created, but it's not all that difficult. But they say that there's a difference between the practice and preach. So while you were preaching, we were all learning, and it was felt that it's very, very simplistic. But I know that once one starts practicing on that side, then you say, before taking things further, I will request Gagan, a dear friend of mine, to propose a vote of thanks.
Thank you,
Gagan?
Vikas. On behalf of Beyond, yes. Am I audible?
Yeah, perfect.
Yes, yes.
Am I audible?
Yes,
Yeah,
sir.
yeah,
Yes, sir.
Yes. Thanks, Vikas. On behalf of Beyond and informative talk on GST and overview, you really very well explained the topics of how you define supply of goods and services. You explained goods, what is goods in GST and what is services in GST. Also with ITC, input tax credit, and reverse charge mechanism. And with lot of examples accompanied with advanced ruling and judgments where GST is leviable and where it is not leviable. It was your rightly very nice. I also got today that GST is not leviable on sale of land as well as on ready occupation of flat, and no GST on normal interest but on penalized interest, and no GST on stipend to trainees, but your view was it should be leviable. It was very well explained, and thanks to everyone who are present in this session, and special thanks to Vikas and his team who have organized this educational session, which is very good for everyone. We came to know about GST. Thanks to everyone. Thanks, Mr. Mittal. Thanks, Mr. Vikas. Over to you, Vikas.
Thank you. Thank you to all the friends and participants who have been watching us live on the Facebook as well as on this platform. It gives you an immense sense of confidence and pride to move forward, to do something and pay back to the society, especially during these testing times. And the way the people are actually watching us live on the Facebook platform as well as on the YouTube, it gives you a proud confidence. Today, in one aspect, there's a more sense of pride for Beyond Law CLC because we started off this journey on 16th of April. And by God's grace and with the participants showing their love towards us, we have crossed the 6,000 subscribers on our YouTube. We are exactly 6,020 today. So a journey where webinars are being done, and it's not a 10 minutes, 15 minutes talk, but where we are taking journey resource persons way from Jammu, Justice like Justice Pramod Kohli, down south, where we had Justice Nagamatu, Justice Anand Venkatesh. Western side, we had Justice Roshan Dalvi, Justice Milan Sathe, and so much so. Today being the 191st webinar in Seritum and Continuum, it gives you more confidence when people are being connected with you. Tomorrow, that pursuit with the webinars. Tomorrow we will be having a session on the March of the rent laws. The speaker is P.V. Balaji, who's well-known author, and his earlier session on the this platform has been well received. He's also a lawyer with immense practice, and at the same time, his passion to share the knowledge with people on webinars and seminars is also well received everywhere. So do stay connected, but tomorrow the time is 5:30, which normally on the weekday we don't do, but keeping in view certain circumstances, we have kept it for that. The insight should be given on these testing times. So do stay connected, stay blessed. And once again, Mr. Mittal and Mr. Gagan, we are thankful, Beyond Law CLC, as well as all participants, the way things have been put forward and been made to understand to a common man, to a professional, a student of law, and beyond that. Thank you, everyone. Namaskar, and stay happy, stay blessed. Namaskar.